silence of mediocrity to disperse expansive, game-changing marketing wisdom. This is the Jeff Payne Show.
Reaching for a higher place than we can reach alone. Get up, get in, it's time to win. This is a Jeff Payne Show.
Hi, I'm Jeff Payne. Welcome to my podcast. You are listening to episode number 7. In the last episode, I left you with a challenge. I told you to go ask an AI, any AI, who the best version of your profession is in your city. And then I told you to read the answer and ask yourself, what does that business have that mine doesn't? So did you do it? Because if you did, one of two things happened. Either your business showed up in AI and you felt good for about 30 seconds until you realized the AI described you the same way it described everyone else. Generic, interchangeable, one name on a list. Or you didn't even show up at all, and now you're sitting with that. Either way, you found the gap. And today I want to talk about what it actually takes to close the gap. Here's what I want you to understand before we go any further. The gap is not a design problem. It's not a color palette problem. It's not a font problem. It's not even really a website problem. The gap is a value problem, a story problem, a show problem. Let me explain what I mean. When AI recommends a business, when it pulls one name out of an entire competitive market and says, this one, for this reason, it's not rewarding the prettiest website. It's rewarding the business that gave it the most to work with, the deepest proof, the clearest philosophy, the most documented, specific, outcome-producing body of work. In other words, AI recommends the businesses that have built a show. Not an ad, but a show. And most businesses haven't. They've built a brochure, a digital business card with a contact form, a few testimonials, and a stock photo of a handshake. And then they wonder why nobody comes, why AI doesn't mention them, why their competitors aren't getting the calls that they should be getting. Here's the question I want you to sit with. What would someone learn from spending 30 minutes on your website? Not what you sell, what they'd learn, what they'd walk away knowing that they didn't know before. What value you'd given them before they even spent $1. If the answer is not as much, that's your gap.
Now, awesome hacks that make life simpler, easier, and faster. Jeff's tip of the week.
Here's my tip of the week, and this one is an investment, not a task. Go to masterclass.com. If you're not a member, the membership is worth every dollar. Pick any instructor, teacher in a field adjacent to yours, whether it's sales communication, leadership, storytelling, negotiation. Just watch 30 minutes of it. But here's the key. Don't watch it for the content. Watch it for the structure. Notice how they open, how they make complexity feel simple, how they hold your attention without losing their credibility, how they take something that could be boring or intimidating and make it feel urgent and human. The best ideas about how to teach what you know are sitting on platforms built by people who have mastered the art of it. The best content in your industry probably isn't in your industry. Go steal the format. Make it yours. Your clients are waiting for the version of you that teaches like that.
And now, our feature presentation.
I want to tell you a story. About 5 years ago, I got a call from a potential client. His name is Daniel Goodwin. He runs a company called Provident 1031, helping investors navigate 1031 exchanges, Delaware statutory trust, qualified opportunity zones, high stakes, complex, trust-dependent financial work. He's had bad experiences with marketing companies before. He told me up front he'd probably give me a shot, but he expected it wouldn't work. And there were no hard feelings. I stopped him. I told him I wasn't sure I was for hire yet. that I only take on projects where I genuinely believe I can help the business become a leader in its space. And that before I agreed to anything, I needed to do my research. I listened to him talk about his business. It was complex, dense, the kind of pitch that would lose most people in the first 5 minutes. That wasn't a criticism of Dan. It was just the nature of his industry. Tax-smart strategies, federal tax code, real estate investment vehicles structured around IRS rulings. It's not exactly light dinner conversation. I drove away from Dan's office that Thursday with a 3.5-hour drive back to Austin ahead of me. Plenty of time to think, to replay the conversation, to be honest with myself about what I was actually considering taking on. And I did have real reservations. This was a project that would require me to genuinely get educated on a complex subject before I could even begin to build anything around it. 1031 exchanges, Delaware statutory trust, qualified opportunity zones, federal tax code. That's not a weekend read. Then there was the previous website. Dan had already spent a small fortune with a prior marketing company. What they produced was, I'll be diplomatic, it was horrible. Not even close to good. I tried to be diplomatic about it, but I told Dan I could see why he wasn't getting any leads. I began wondering whether Dan was expecting me to fix the mess from the previous developer, or if he was seeking my advice in a winning lead generation strategy. Those are two very different conversations, and in my mind, only one of them was worth having. I asked Dan, what is different about your company and what it offers compared to your top 10 competitors? He said, I really don't know. I said, that is what we need to figure out. Otherwise, you'll be just as invisible as they are. After a lengthy conversation with Dan and his team, I said, let me think about our conversation and study your top 10 competitors to see if I can come up with something that differentiates you from all of them. I then left his office, ready for my drive back to Austin. Along the way, I stopped at a famous barbecue restaurant, pulled out my laptop, and put my earbuds in. I was a member of Masterclass.com, and if you've never spent time there, I highly recommend it. It's one of the most professionally produced educational platforms in the world. World-class experts, cinematic quality, complex subjects made simple. It's entertaining and inspiring all at once. As a marketer, I go there regularly because the storytelling and ideas are worth the membership. That evening, I started watching Daniel Pink teach on sales and persuasion. Less than 5 minutes in, I stopped the video. Not because it wasn't good, because it was too good. Because sitting there in that barbecue restaurant, watching Daniel Pink take one of the most misunderstanding subjects in business and make it feel clear and urgent and human, it caused me to have an epiphany. This is what Daniel Goodwin needs. Not just a new website. He needed something bigger, a masterclass. We needed to take his complex tax strategy, the 1031 exchange, and build a professional video series on the same scale as what I was watching. Cinematic, authoritative, entertaining, thought-provoking, show Dan as the subject expert, create likability between Dan and his listener, and create content that makes a confusing subject feel suddenly approachable. The kind of content that makes the viewer feel like they're learning from the best in the business, because they are. I opened SEMrush, my go-to app for competitor research and market analysis. I searched the primary keywords for Daniel's business, pulled up the top 10 competitors, and clicked through every single site. And my hunch was confirmed. Every single one said the same thing. Same language, same lingo, same tired bullet points about tax deferral and passive income and accredited investors. You could have swapped the logos and nobody would have noticed. They were all selling 1031 exchanges. None of them were helping customers understand the strategy. None of them were connecting the dots. Not one of them had built anything that resembled a show. All of them were selling. None were positioning by providing value up front. None were doing it for free. Daniel Goodwin now had a path to a competitive advantage that none of his competitors could easily replicate. I called him and presented the idea, along with the hefty investment. I didn't see his face through the phone, but I heard the pause. That brief moment of, I believe, just helped my unbelief. I said, I understand. Think about it, Dan. Let's talk after the weekend. 10 minutes later, still driving home, my phone rang. It was Dan. Jeff, let's do it. Let's win. What do we do next? I told him to give me some time to get with my team, put together a strategy, and give him a proposal that he could say yes to. I also wanted to create a storyboard and needed to fully understand the 1031 exchange myself before we built anything. Because you can't build a great show around a subject you don't understand. And I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. What emerged from that phone call became the #1 lead generation machine in Daniel's business. We've since built 5 masterclasses for Dan. We've redesigned his entire website around the behavior of the investors those masterclasses attracted. And we just published a book now available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But here's what I want you to understand about why it worked. It wasn't about the video. It wasn't about a website. It was about an experience. It was about authority. It was about service, about persuasion. It was about value delivered before anyone ever wrote a check. Those were the exact ingredients missing from every competitor. They were selling 1031 exchanges. Daniel was positioning himself as the expert who helps you understand why the strategy matters for your life. That's a big difference. As the results showed up fast, before clients ever met Daniel in person, they'd already watched a masterclass video or two, seen the trailer, read the content, and they arrived at the strategy call already convinced. Why? Because he had shown them he was relatable. He showed he cared. He showed he had mastered the subject. He showed he could communicate in a way that was clear, human, and compelling. And his site backed all of that up. Here's what Dan told me. And this is a long way from, quote, no hard feelings, you probably won't make the cut, quote. For every dollar we spend with you, Jeff, we are putting at least 5 back into our pocket. After we subtract what we spent, that's an amazing cost benefit that I've never received before in any of our previous marketing endeavors. 5-to-1 return. On an investment he almost passed on over a weekend. That was the closing gap. That's what closing the gap actually looks like. And I want to be honest with you about what it requires, because I don't want you walking away from this episode thinking the solution is make a video series. That's not the lesson. The lesson is this. Daniel didn't just get a new tool. He got a new strategy. He stopped trying to sell financial products and started teaching people how to think about their money. He stopped interrupting people with ads and started courting them with education. He stopped asking for the sale and started building the relationship that made the sale inevitable. To use a phrase I believe in deeply, he started courting the customer before asking them to get married. Think about what that means in your industry. What does your ideal client need to understand, genuinely understand, before they're ready to work with you? What fear do they have that nobody is addressing honestly? What question do they keep asking that your competitors answer with jargon instead of clarity? That's your show. That's the content that builds trust before the conversation, that earns the recommendation before the search. That makes AI point to you specifically, not generically, because you gave it something worth pointing to. A few more examples to make this concrete. A law firm that publishes a plain English guide to the 3 most common mistakes people make when they don't have an estate plan, not to sell estate planning, but to genuinely serve people who are scared and confused and don't know where to start, that firm becomes the most trusted authority. AI doesn't recommend the firm with the most Google reviews. It recommends the one whose content actually helps people think. A financial advisor who creates a short video series walking business owners through exactly what to expect and the year before they sell their company, the questions, the emotional reality, the things nobody tells you. The advisor is no longer competing with 40 other advisors on fee structure. She's competing with herself. She's the only one who gave you a map before you needed a guide. A contractor who documents every major project with real storytelling, not just photos, but the problem, the decision-making process, the unexpected challenge, the outcome. The contractor is building a portfolio that AI can actually learn from. That portfolio becomes the case study that earns the recommendation. The pattern is the same every time. The businesses winning AI search aren't just the ones with the best products or the most experience. They're the ones who've invested in teaching what they know, documenting what they've done, and building a body of work that proves, before anyone asks, that they are the obvious choice. Here's the hard truth underneath all of this. Today, a website is necessary, but no longer sufficient. 5 years ago, a well-built website with solid SEO could make you dominant in your market. That window is closing. It's not closed entirely, but it's closing fast. Because AI doesn't just index your website. It synthesizes your entire digital presence, your website, your published work, your client outcomes, your thought leadership, the depth of your content, the specificity of your expertise. If all you have is a website, even a great website, you're bringing a brochure to a battle where your competitors bring in a masterclass, a book, a podcast, a documented track record of outcomes that a machine can read and synthesize and recommend with confidence. Today, AI has made a website irrelevant by itself. Today, you better have a show, or nobody will show up. And if nobody shows up, if the AI, your next best client just consulted, doesn't mention your name, it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how long you've been in business. It doesn't matter how many people in your city know and trust you. The next generation of buyers isn't asking their network first. They're asking AI. And AI is giving them an answer, a specific one, with a reason. The question is whether that answer has your name in it. Here's your challenge for this week. And this one's bigger than last week's. Look at what you know that your clients desperately need to understand. Pick one thing, just one. The concept, the process, the framework, the warning, the insight that you explain in every first meeting that changes how people think. Now ask yourself, is that on your website? Is it documented? Is it taught? Could someone find it, learn from it, and come to you already convinced before you ever say a word? If not, that's your show. That's your masterclass. That's the thing that closes the gap. You don't need a production studio to start. You need a point of view and the willingness to give your best thinking away before someone pays for it. Because the businesses that give first, that teach first, that serve first, they're the ones AI recommends. And the ones AI recommends are the ones that win. Stop thinking inside the box. Forget the box entirely. Build the show, earn the recommendation, and win the decade. Show notes and resources from both episodes are waiting for you at jeffpayne.net. If this series is making you think differently about your business, please share it. forward it to one person in your world who's competing for the same thing that you're looking for, that hasn't figured it out yet. That's the greatest compliment you can pay this work. I'm Jeff Payne. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. That's the greatest compliment you can pay this work. I'm Jeff Payne. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to The Jeff Payne Show.
Find the complete archives of all episodes at jeffpayne.net or subscribe for free at Apple Podcasts and never miss an episode.
This program is copyrighted by Jeff Payne Incorporated. All rights reserved.
Each week we bring you a message of inspiration and hope, remembering that true hope is available to all through Jesus Christ.